If your Mac Mini is overheating, you can replacing the thermal paste or cleaning the internal dust. Before starting a teardown, back up your Mac and then turn off the Mac. Unplug the power cord and all other cables. Always wait at least 2 minutes to allow the logic board and power supply to discharge. Next, let's see what tools we'll need. Thermal paste or phase change pad. Choose one. This process requires Torx T6, T8, and T10 screwdrivers. Or you can use the officially recommended screwdriver and bit. Flip the Mac over. Insert the flat end of the black stick between the bottom cover and the housing. Lift the bottom cover off the antenna plate. Remove the 6 T6 screws from the antenna plate. To avoid damage to the enclosure, apply painter's tape to the inner edges of the housing. Insert the black stick into one of the ventilation holes. Then move the antenna plate slightly off to one side as shown. Remove a Torx T6 grounding screw with a captive washer. Lift the connector and remove the antenna plate from the housing. Remove the 4 Torx T6 screws that secure the fan. Be sure to distinguish between the angled and the vertical screws. Tilt up the fan. Use the flat end of the black stick to release the adhesive between the fan cable and the logic board. Use tweezers to peel the film from the locking lever of the status indicator ZIF connector. Flip up the locking lever, then slide the cable out of the connector. Pinch the sides of the power supply signal cable connector, then slide the cable out of the connector. Use tweezers to peel the film off the power supply cable connector. Use the flat end of the black stick to alternately pry out the connector. Remove the 2 Torx T8 screws from the bus bar and 3 T10 screws from the logic board. Remove the 2 Torx T10 screws from the logic board. Slightly lift the bus bar, then slide the logic board out of the housing. Push the heat sink to slide the logic board out of the housing. Remove the two Torx T6 screws from the speaker. Use the flat end of the black stick to lift the speaker cable off the connector. Flip the logic board over to the underside. Use tweezers to peel off the foam pad covering the screws. Remove the 4 Torx T6 screws that secure the air duct. Remove the 4 T6 screws from the side of the air duct. Use the flat end of the black stick to loosen the adhesive. Then, slide the end of the cable out of the connector. Lift the ends of the antenna cables off the connectors. Gently lift the antenna cables off the cable grounding clips. Remove the T6 screw from the grounding strap on the I/O wall. Slowly pull about 2 to 4 centimeters of the long antenna cable through the channel under the air duct. Pull the I/O wall away from the logic board and air duct. Rotate it to the left as shown. Remove the air duct and I/O wall. Flip the logic board over to the underside. Remove the 4 T6 screws that secure the heat sink. Gently hold down the flexure when remove the screws on each flexure clip. Flip the logic board over to the top side. Use the black stick to lift up the heatsink. Clean the chip's top cover with IPA. Clean the base of the heatsink. Don't remove the black thermal gel. Apply thermal paste or phase change pad to the raised area on the heatsink base. Carefully align the heatsink screw bosses with the screw holes on the logic board. Set the torque driver to 14.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall 4 T6 screws. Check that the screws on both sides of the flexure clip are at the same height. If they are not, reinstallation is required. Flip the logic board over to the top side. Carefully route the antenna cable from the I/O shield back into its channel. Reinstall the air duct. Align the I/O wall mounting brackets with the sides of the air duct and reinstall it. Set the torque driver to 23.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the 2T6 screws on one side. Reinstall the power button cable into the connector. Gently run the flat end of a black stick along the length of the power button cable to adhere it to the logic board. Reinstall the 2T6 screws on the other side. Use the T6 screwdriver to reinstall one T6 screw into the grounding strap on the I/O wall. Reinstall the two antenna cables to the connectors. Gently press the two antenna cables into the three antenna cable grounding clips. Reinstall the power button cable into the connector. Flip the logic board over to the top side. Adhere it to the logic board. Reinstall the speaker. Set the torque driver to 14.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the two T6 screws into the speaker. Set the torque driver to 23.5 Newton-centimeter. Flip the logic board over to the underside. Reinstall the four T6 screws that secure the air duct. Reapply the foam pad over the screws. Insert the flat end of the black stick under the bus bar. Slide the logic board fully into the housing. Squeeze the clips on both sides to help guide the logic board into place. Then remove the black stick. Ensure that the status indicator light cable and the power supply cable aren't trapped under the logic board. Use the black stick to guide the bus bar tabs into the highlighted openings. Set the torque driver to 1.8 Newton-meter. Reinstall the 3T10 screws into the logic board. Set the torque driver to 0.65 Newton-meter. Reinstall the two T8 screws into the bus bar. Set the torque driver to 1.2 Newton-meter. Reinstall the two T10 screws into the logic board. Slide the end of the power supply cable into the connector. Position the film over the power supply cable connector. Reinstall the status indicator light cable into the connector. Reinstall the power supply signal cable and the status indicator light cable into the connector. Tilt the top edge of the fan down to slide under the edge of the housing. Press the fan cable to the connector. Set the torque driver to 23.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the two T6 screws at an angle. Set the torque driver to 14.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the two T6 screws near the edge of the housing. Press the fan cable to the connector. Position the fan in the housing. Set the torque driver to 23.5 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the four T6 screws into the fan. Rest the antenna plate on the housing. Ensure that the antenna cable is positioned over the antenna connector and the grounding strap. Press the antenna cable to the connector. Set the torque driver to 13 Newton-centimeter. Reinstall the T6 screw into the antenna cable grounding strap. Set the torque driver to 29.5 Newton-centimeter. The M1 model set to 0.3 Newton-meter. Reinstall the 6 T6 screws into the antenna plate. Remove the painter's tape. Position the bottom cover over the antenna plate. Press the bottom cover until the three bottom cover clips snap onto the three T6 screws. Finally, let's observe the thermal performance under a stress test after replacing the thermal paste. Hope this guide was helpful. Thanks for your time.